people on that, and you can participate to see if you become an American citizen. So there's several different things going on.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark, for bringing that to our attention. And we, anything else that's newsworthy or noteworthy? Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Daryl. Hi, group. How are you guys?
Good.
Great.
Okay. Then we've got health and happiness. Anybody wanting to tell about some neat and nifty things that's happening in their lives?
Not too exciting.
I'm getting on a plane in 2 weeks to go to New Jersey to see my family.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm
hey, they
scared.
have to let you in, Leslie.
I know.
You'll be quarantined.
Well, I can do that, but I'm not sure I should be doing this, so it's still up in the air.
Yeah. We canceled our trip. We've had our grandkids here for a week.
So they came here.
Yes. They have to be quarantined when they go home.
I know.
We're going up to Lexington, Kentucky tomorrow to see Hope's father. His birthday was last Friday, and unfortunately, he had to go to the hospital. He's been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Oh, no.
She wanted to get up there and see him, so we're going to drive tomorrow to Lexington, Kentucky to see him. And we'll be back on Monday. And sometime between Monday and Wednesday of next week, I want to gather several of you together and talk about the upcoming year and in preparation for our club assembly on Wednesday. So several of us have gotten together already, and I had sent out an email to you talking about our focus on the issues that are of concern right now, which are health, hunger, homelessness, education, poverty, and addiction. And I'm going to be pushing that agenda for this next year to address that.
You're scheduled to have a board meeting next week. How does that fit in?
I want to do that in advance so that the board meeting will be organized, Andy. And I'd like to get together with you in advance, Bill Jenkins, Dave Morgan, Ted, the Teds, and Leslie and Clay. So I want to get together in advance so that what we present to the rest of the board and to the club will be organized and take into consideration our foundation that has been set up and the directions that we want to go and a broader, just a broader put. So Andy, I know you're in, and Ted E, I know you're in, and Ted B, you're just down the street, you're going to be in, and Dave Morgan, I know you'll be joining us. Leslie, will you be available? Will you come over and sit on the porch with us?
What day?
Oh, we'll decide that next week.
Oh, okay. I should be okay.
All right. Dale, you're looking awful chipper there and in front of that. And it's been a while since you were down in Southport and last time I saw you, you were on your motorcycle. So I'm going to ask Duncan Hilburn if he'll just introduce you as our speaker today, and we'll take it forward. Okay, Duncan, you're on.
Okay. About 2 weeks ago, I was doing some continuing education at which Treasurer Folwell spoke, and he mentioned Rotary at least 2 or 3 times in his talk. So I thought he'd be a perfect speaker to speak to our club. So Dale Folwell, CPA, was sworn in as State Treasurer of North Carolina in January 2017. As the keeper of the public purse, Treasurer Folwell is responsible for a $100 million state pension fund that provides retirement benefits for more than 900,000 teachers, law enforcement officers, and other public workers. Under Folwell's leadership, the pension plan was rated among the top highest funded in the country and won accolades for proactive management and funding discipline. In 2018, the state's coveted AAA bond rating was reaffirmed by every major rating agency, making North Carolina one of only 13 states in the country to hold that distinction. Treasurer Folwell also receives the state health plan, which provides medical and pharmaceutical benefits to more than 720,000 current and retired public employees, and is the largest purchaser of health care in North Carolina. Treasurer Folwell was first elected to public office as a member of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education. He brought his problem-solving skills to the North Carolina General Assembly in 2004, where he served four terms in the House of Representatives, including one as Speaker pro tempore. Treasurer Folwell began his career as a blue-collar worker and became a certified public accountant and investment advisor after earning a bachelor's and master's degree in accounting from UNC Greensboro. Married for 30 years, he and his wife Cynthia have 3 children and live in Winston-Salem. Speaking to us today is Treasurer Dale Folwell.
Thank you. Duncan, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Great.
Yes.
I'll go into my prepared remarks, but first a question. I had to go to the thesaurus. Mark used the word kerfuffering. I'm trying to figure out what that word even means. So maybe in your Q&A you can answer that. And you were talking about the ringing of the bells and all the things going on. But it reminds me, Mark and Daryl and others, how much I'm going to miss not being with you at your festival this year. And it's for obvious reasons, but it still hurts me not to be there on my motorcycle. So my remarks may get emotional. They'll get extremely mathematical, but nothing political. I'm going to give a few moment presentation about where we are at the state of the state financially, what some of my frustrations are as state treasurer and keeper of the public purse, where my fears lie. I'll say a few words about Rotary, and then open up for one final part of the Q&A, and then I'll give you something that maybe you can find worthy of contributing some happy bucks for. I think it does deserve happy bucks when you say the Pledge of Allegiance, but it may be unhappy bucks when you actually hear the harmonization of all of you saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So anyway, it's something that I always enjoy hearing. So the state of the state, I'm going to talk in billions of dollars for just a few moments. The state applied for and received over $4 billion of COVID CARE Act money. That's part of the multi-trillion-dollar piece of legislation that you all been reading and hearing about. As you could expect, as soon as that money hit the treasurer's office, we put that into interest-bearing accounts. But very quickly after it hit the treasurer's office, $471 million was allocated to 3 counties and 1 city. And you know that we have 100 counties and 540 cities. So why was 471 million of that earmarked for 3 counties and 1 city? And the answer is, when Congress wrote the law, they put out a special provision for areas that had population in excess of 500,000 people. So the 3 counties are Wake, Guilford, and Mecklenburg, and the 1 city is Charlotte. The question I most often get is, why didn't Raleigh get any of that money? And the answer is mathematical. There aren't 500,000 citizens in the city limits of Raleigh because of the other large incorporated areas within Wake County. So that left about $3.5 billion, and then the General Assembly passed, and you've got great representatives down there in Brunswick County, Representative Byler and also Senator Rabin. The legislature passed a COVID bill that expended about $1.5 billion of that. So where we stand this afternoon is about $2 billion in COVID CARE Act money that's not been spent. We have a $2 billion budget surplus from the year that ended yesterday, which was completely, COVID was unanticipated, but when you've heard that the state budget is $3.5 to $4.5 billion in the hole. Having that $2 billion in reserve from last year is going to be very meaningful. On top of that, which is very important to the folks of your Rotary Club, we have over $1 billion in rainy day fund. And on top of that, even though there's a widespread frustration with the unemployment agency and the backlog and the people not being able to get their checks, there is about $3 billion sitting in the unemployment trust fund, so that once that backlog gets cleared, that money can be paid out. That is far different than what it was in 2013 when I was the head of that agency. Every week, Daryl, when we had to pay out unemployment benefits, we had to go to the federal government to borrow the money to pay out the benefits and pay interest to the federal government, because we had $2.6 billion in unemployment debt. And now we have about $3 billion in unemployment surplus. So that's very meaningful. As far as my frustrations are that when that money got allocated down from Washington to the General Assembly, it had lots of strings attached to it. For example, Brunswick County is getting $2.5 million of that money, and that's because of a law passed by the General Assembly, not Congress. And but there's strings attached to it where some people feel the need to go buy a piece of equipment they don't necessarily need, just to say it's COVID-19 related, or create a program just to say it's COVID-19 related. And I'll say this as elegantly as I can: what in the world in our lives today is not COVID-19 related, starting with the fact that we're not meeting in person. I can't imagine, it's just so bizarre to me that Congress would put strings attached to this money and say that something has to be COVID related activities, when what these counties need, and then the cities who didn't get an allocation need, is they need money to backfill the loss of income tax, gas tax, sales tax, and occupancy tax. They need that money to backfill the budget shortfalls associated with people being locked down. When you're locked down, you can't move, and when you can't move, you can't consume, and when you can't consume, you're not generating the sales tax, the gas tax, and occupancy tax. And those are the things that fund the things that your Rotary Club cares about, in addition to your initiatives going forward. Your Rotary Club cares about public education, public safety, public roads, and public works. And that's where my frustration is that this money should be able to be used to backfill budget shortfalls associated with people being locked in place associated with the medical virus. As far as my fears are with rural North Carolina. And there are lots of Brunswick County that are rural, and some that are not so rural. But even though everybody's working on the same issue of budget shortfalls, they're in far different boats. Charlotte sounds very similar to Charlotte. They're both southern cities both cities in the southern border of North Carolina. But I can tell you, and for a fact, Charlotte is in a far different budget situation this morning than Charlotte is. And that's my way of telling you that my fear is that this economic virus, and some of you may know I was hospitalized for 6 days at the end of March with an intensive bout of COVID-19 that I'll be glad to answer any questions about. And so I appreciate more than most the focus on the sick and flattening the healthcare curve. But this virus, this economic virus, that curve needs to be flattened also. And my fear about Eastern North Carolina is that this virus is going to create an economic inequality, not just among groups of people, but among regions of North Carolina. As I said earlier, Charlotte and Charlotte sound just alike, but they're in far different boats. So that's sort of the state of the state. That's where my frustrations are. That's where my fears are. And let me just say a little something about Rotary. I come to Raleigh from Winston-Salem on Mondays, go back on Fridays, Thursday this week, because Friday's a state holiday. And it never fails that on that trip, I don't see a Rotary International sign on the back of a car or actually a billboard with either the four-way test or service above self. So I'm always reminded of what Rotary International stands for, and I often fantasize about what our communities and our state and our country could be like if all the elected leaders adopted the four-way test and service above self. I mean, what a great picture that would be. When I get home, I greet my wife, and then I always look at a picture of our son who was killed over 20 years ago at the age of 7. And the Greensboro Rotary Club bequeathed on him the Paul Harris Fellowship posthumously. And so that Paul Harris plaque is hanging right beside his picture in our den. And so to all of you Paul Harris Fellows that are on the Zoom call today, I know what that means, and I congratulate you for obtaining that particular award. And also want to remind you, as we go into July 4th, about a movie that some of you have seen and some of you may have forgotten, but the movie is Monuments Men. And Monuments Men is a true story about middle-aged folks like Daryl and I who were deputized by the President of the United States toward the end of World War II. These Monuments Men were subject matter experts in manuscripts and paintings and sculptures and artwork, art history. And these Monuments Men were deputized to get between the Allied forces who were going in this direction and the German forces who were retreating. The reason that President wanted this done is that Hitler had ordered that all the great works of art of Western civilization that he had captured over the previous 3 years, he wanted it all to be destroyed before the Third Reich fell. He wanted it destroyed because he knew that if he could destroy the history of Western civilization, that eventually people would have no bearings. And when you have no bearings, you can't tell where you're going. And if people can't tell where they're going, people like him can survive. So 3/4 of the way through the movie, for those of you who have seen it, that one of the Monuments Men gets killed. And George Clooney's trying to build up their spirits around the campfire. And he said, listen, there'll be a day when thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of school kids and art lovers and grandparents and tourists from all around the world are going to be visiting the great museums of the world and witnessing what it is we're preserving. But they're never going to know who did it. And that's not why we're here. That's not why your Rotary Club is there either. You do things on a weekly, a monthly, and a yearly basis that no one really knows who did them. But that's not why you're there. You're there because it's the four-way test and putting service above self. So that's my way of paying tribute to your Rotary Club, and not only your mission and your goals for next year, but all the things that you've done in the past for those that may never know who did them. So I congratulate you. I appreciate the opportunity to bring this mathematical message to you about the state of the state, where my frustrations are, where my fears are, and also pay tribute to Southport. In closing, I want to give you a couple of statistics because we are facing dramatic shortfalls, not just at the local level, but at the state level. But I want to congratulate Southport. You know, the statewide average, and maybe Duncan can add to this, but the statewide average of the amount of money that's held in reserve across the state of North Carolina among cities is about 25%. And Southport has nearly 49% in reserve. That represents $2.5 million. As smart as the folks are in Southport, as smart as they are, I don't think anybody predicted COVID-19 and the economic virus that's come along with that. But they knew that Southport being the community that they are, that they needed to reserve for any type of situation that may occur. So they've done a great job of watching the pennies and the paper clips as they try to budget their way out of this lack of sales tax and lack of occupancy tax, and I congratulate them. Brunswick County has $68 million in reserve, and that represents 34% of their yearly budget. So I also want to congratulate the leaders of Brunswick County for watching the pennies and paper clips and for being very conservative. On the pension plan, just to put some context around that introduction, we actually manage about $200 billion at the Treasurer's Office. That is 8 times the size of the state budget. The pension plan, just the pension plan, closed yesterday at $104 billion. That is 4 times larger than the state budget. We just sent out checks last week remotely to over 315,000 retirees that represented $535 million. That is the monthly pension benefit for one 30-day period in the state and local pension plan. And except for Winston-Salem Police and Charlotte Fire, every local and state employee are associated with this pension plan. And contrary to popular belief, every one of them, for every day they work for the state, they contribute money out of their pocket into this pension plan. 6% of their payroll, of their income, goes into this pension plan. I don't know what happens at the federal level, Darrell, but I can tell you in the North Carolina pension system, every local and state employee actually takes money out of their pocket and contributes to the pension plan. The pension plan, with all the volatility this year, I'm very pleased to report, I just got the numbers in about 10 minutes ago. The pension plan for this calendar year is down less than 1%. And for the fiscal year that ended last night, we're up 4%. And I'm reporting this to you, but I'm standing on the shoulders of the hardworking folks at the Investment Management Division in the conservative way that previous treasurers have always managed this pension plan on behalf of those that teach, those that protect, and those that otherwise serve. So those are my remarks. I'm going to save about 90 seconds at the end. So someone will give me the Carol Burnett when you think that's a good time. But I'll be glad to entertain any questions about any subject that you may have read about or would like to ask me about.
You have to unmute us.
Libby, I've tried to read lips, but I'm not that good.
Okay, I'm ready.
My wife can read lips, but I can't read lips.
I just wanted to give you something that might lighten your heart a little bit.
Okay.
The head of our chamber, who's also a Rotary member, uses the word pivot. And that's what a lot of our business owners are having to do right now, is do a little pivot. And I'm just amazed by some of the creative recovery things that people have done to keep themselves in business, like House of Rayford, of course, lost a lot of business when the restaurants weren't open. So what did they do? They came and brought their chickens on trucks they've been here 3 times and sold boxes of meat to the constituents. So we were able to pack up and store up things like that. I mean, just very ingenious things. And I wish there were some resources to help the ones that are hurting maybe pivot a little bit better, because some people can't think like that. And,
Libby, that's a great comment and a question, and it hurts me when I hear that piglets are being killed because they can't be processed because they can't be distributed, or young turkeys or young chickens or any of that, or our son, who I've already mentioned, is buried in the area called Grassy Creek, which is right above Sparta, and you know, the milk producers up there are simply milking cows and pouring it out. I'll say this also as elegantly as I can, Libby, and I only say it because Warren Buffett said it 26 years ago in his annual report. You can't tell who's not wearing a bathing suit until the tide goes out. Now, I know that's an important visual for people from Brunswick County. Now, why are you clapping at that? I'm not sure where Mark's humor is this morning, but it's true, because what Libby just talked about is the exposure, no pun intended, the exposure of the gaps of our situation, whether it's food distribution, healthcare access, healthcare inequality, the fact that, you know, we have a lot of people in the state who, like I was for a third of my life, who have to make their living with their hands and their back and their feet. They can't make their living with one of these. And in the words of Warren Buffett, you know, when the tide went out associated with the virus of COVID-19, it exposed a lot of the situations with food distribution, as Libby just correctly pointed out. It's a great point, Libby.
And we're very happy that you're doing better.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding the pensions that are funded. As you are well aware, many states are grossly underfunded with their public pensions. What percent is the North Carolina pension system funded?
Thank you, Mike. Another opportunity to brag so people can contribute some more happy bucks. Our pension plan, let me rephrase this. 8 months ago, I had our pension plan stress tested. Now, it's the same kind of stress test that somebody my age will go through every 10 years to check my heart. Mm-hmm. The stress test that I wanted on the pension plan is I wanted to see how well funded it could hold up, directly to your question, Chris. Mike, how well funded it could hold up if the stock market went down, employment went down, and interest rates went up. And Pew came back and said we are one of the 5 best handfuls in the United States. And Moody's, which is one of our rating agencies, Moody's is to me what a credit score is to you or a sanitation grade is to a restaurant. Moody's came back and said we were #1 in the United States in terms of our ability to keep funding the plan during an economic shock. Who could have ever imagined when I asked for this last fall that we were facing this spring? So we're very proud of that. But directly answer your question, Mike, this pension plan is about 88% funded.
Okay.
The South Carolina pension plan is 55% funded. Mm-hmm. The Alabama retirement system is 60% funded. One of the Kentucky teacher retirement systems is 33% funded. And that is a tribute to the local and the state, local governments and the state legislatures who have continued to fund this plan even during times of economic strife.
That's very good. That's very good.
But Mike, it has headwinds. Excellent. It has headwinds. When I was in high school, or when I bought my first house, I guess in 1980, interest rates were at 10%. So it's really, really easy to be the state treasurer in North Carolina and the keeper of one of the biggest purses in the world, when all you got to do is put money in treasury bonds and your hurdle was 7. But as you know, interest rates are at 0 today. In addition to that, and we have no minimum retirement age in this pension plan. And people are retiring earlier than they ever have during my lifetime. And then on top of that, we have a blessed event. I hope everybody will consider this to be blessed. We have increased life expectancies. So when I was in high school in the late 70s in Winston-Salem, we had 280 people, 90-year-old and above, who were getting a pension check off this pension system. 280. Last week, we had 7,300. So interest rates have plummeted. Wall Street fees have gone through the roof. No minimum retirement age, because people were taking it out earlier than ever, and then they were living longer than ever. Great happy bucks for the women on the call, for a female who graduates from high school and graduates from college and becomes a state employee of any type, and they retire when they're eligible to retire. They're literally going to be living for longer than they worked. The mathematics of what I just told you have never existed in our life, where especially female life expectancy, they're going to be living after retirement for longer than they worked. And that's what makes this running and maintaining this pension plan so difficult.
Thank you.
Mike, what's the situation in Michigan where you moved from?
Oh, I don't know. I know Illinois, who had friends there, it's grossly underfunded. That's why I asked.
35%.
Yeah, and I always ask that question about pensions. 88's pretty good. Anything below 80 is not good. And 88's good for a state, very good.
Okay, Libby, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have another question.
I'm on a Zoom call.
How much of the income from the North Carolina Education Lottery is actually spent on education?
Whoops.
It's the question that I get most often. But I'm going to answer it, Libby, in not exactly the way that you want it answered, because what we don't need right now in our environment ever actually is a public official who doesn't know the exact answer to a question. If a public official doesn't know the exact answer to any question, they should keep their mouth shut. So let me give you a little bit of context.
Okay.
I was on the floor of the House of Representatives when the lottery passed by 1 vote. And what I want to key in on related to your question, Libby, is the fact when that bill left the chamber to the governor's desk, 40% of the lottery profit was supposed to go to public school construction where the money followed the child. 40%. Now, we all know and have heard that the amount of money the lottery is producing is beyond expectation. But even as the lottery profits have grown, the percentage of the lottery proceeds going to public school construction has fallen to 20%. So what I'm trying to do as the state treasurer is to get that back up to 40, because everybody knows that interest rates are low and it's a good time to borrow money, but why not do what the voters were told they were going to do, which is when the lottery profits came in, that 40% of that would go toward public school construction, which is desperately needed, especially in rural North Carolina, who doesn't have the tax base to float a bond or do any of these things. Terrell County is a few miles north of where you're sitting. It's a county that people in Raleigh and other parts of North Carolina have to go through in order to get to the Outer Banks. I want to put this in context for you. The population of Terrell County today is about equal to the student population and the faculty at Myers Park High School in Charlotte. The number of people in an entire county is about equal to a student and faculty population at one high school in one of our urban areas. My point of saying that to you, Libby, related back to your question, is that there's nowhere for these folks to go in Terrell County when they want to build a new school. There's no property tax. It's just very difficult. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting the lottery profit, 40% of the lottery profit, to go back toward the public school construction and repair fund. So I'm just commenting on the 40% part. I can't answer the bigger question.
That's okay. That's the percentage is fine. That's good.
Well, let me be clear. What I'm saying is that 40% of the lottery is not going to public school construction. It's only about 20%.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We need to get it back up to where it is.
Yeah.
And we also don't need to punish counties like Brunswick County, where the voters have approved bonds and gone into debt. Just because your county has thought through and has the ability to borrow money, when we get this back up to 40%, you should be able to get this money back to repay for debt you've already acquired. We should not be punishing counties like Brunswick County who had done the right thing for the last 8 years, even as this percentage was falling.
And that's the second part of that, because that was what I heard even when in the beginning when it was 40%, that the state lowered how much money went to education because to equalize the new money that was coming in from the lottery. So it was really like a status quo to the education system.
Well, for a person who used to stutter, there's two words I probably shouldn't be using. One is called supplantation. And that's what you just described. The money was supplanted from one thing to the other. And but you're exactly right. And that's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm. Well,
This is what happens in New Jersey all the time.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you. Any one final question, Daryl, from anyone?
What can we do as citizens to make that change and get it back up to 40%?
Well, if you'll be the brains, I'll be the mule.
That's what I'm saying. Talk to our congressman or
no, Representative Eiler,
representatives. Okay.
And Senator Rabin, and I have said publicly over the last 4 weeks that it should be a constitutional amendment. This goes to Libby, you should never have to ask this question anymore. It should be in the Constitution of what the bill said with the lottery proceeds, and nobody should mess with it anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm very much in favor of that. I also wanted to say there's some other things you can do as far as this economic virus. And I say this very genuinely, but also say it very gently. If you have the means to do so, and with over 1 million people unemployed in North Carolina, everybody doesn't have the means to do so. But if you have the means to do so, and you care about the county of Brunswick, the city of Southport, your volunteer fire departments, consume. And consumption is not just in the Pepsi Colas and the NABs. If you have the ability to do so, consume, because you know that sales tax, that occupancy tax, that all eventually part of it flows back into the budgets of Brunswick County and the city of Southport and the volunteer fire departments who are really struggling right now. And consumption starts with something called the renewal of the tag on your car. There was a law passed that gave people 4 extra months to renew the tag on their car. It doesn't say you have to wait 4 months. It just says you have up to 4 months. But if you look at your tax and tag bill on your automobile, you'll notice the 2 biggest expenses are the money going to your county or the money going to your city or your volunteer fire department. So if you have the ability to consume, going back to Karen's question, please do so. That's the single best thing that you can help to help your city, your county, and your volunteer fire departments in your community.
Bill, the fellow who just called on my phone was Howie Franklin. And Howie Franklin runs the airport here in Southport. And he likes to say that money doesn't drive in anymore, it flies in. And he contributes, I think, about 67, correct me if I'm wrong, about $67 million to the local economy.
Right.
That's one of the things that, talking about consumption, that's one of the things that we like to see our visitors fly in. And hopefully we'll have more of them coming.
That means that somebody on this call is getting ready to go to New Jersey in 2 weeks, is what that means to me.
I also want to express my appreciation to you and your management team, because I get a small pension from the state, having taught at Fayetteville State University. And I get a small pension, and I am so assured that it's going to be there. Unlike my time spent at Chrysler Corporation or Systems Research Laboratories, those pension funds are gone for me. But thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you for saying that. And maybe we can use some of that pension money and get you a new microphone. I'm surprised you didn't hit me up for a cola. Not a Coca-Cola, but a microphone. But it's very glad to be with you. I want to leave by talking about we run the $100 billion pension plan, the $13 billion defined contribution, which is 401, 457, and 403, retirement services division, financial operation division. So when somebody pays a tuition check to Elizabeth Fayetteville State, eventually that comes through the treasurer's office. We have the state and local government commission, but we also have another division called NC Cash. Now, the second word that I shouldn't say as a former stutterer is the word escheats. So I'm only going to say it one time. And every state, even New Jersey, has an escheats fund. And you say, well, what does that mean? We call it NC Cash. There's $763 million. I just walked over from the escheats department. There's $763 million sitting in the escheats fund this morning. How does it get there? It's a rent deposit that you were owed back, and when somebody mailed it to you, check didn't cash. It was the last paycheck. It was a bank account somebody opened in your name, and they'd forgotten about it. Last year, we gave $600,000 to a lady who was the beneficiary of a life insurance policy and did not realize it because nobody ever told her. So last year we gave out about $40 million, and your chances, going back to Libby, your chances are better than playing the lottery because there's 11 million records of things that belong to people, and there's only 10 million citizens. So check your name, your maiden name, your kids' names, your parents' names. Check other states that you may have lived in. There's no charge. If you don't see my picture at the top, you're on the wrong website. There's no charge to look up your name. There's no charge to get what's owed you. I only say this during the end of my remarks so that you won't be doing it while I'm talking, because you wouldn't listen to anything else I had to say. But also to tell you that I've never, ever in my public service career, ever given a presentation where somebody in the audience did not have money at nccash.com. Now, in addition to cash and securities, we have some other things in case you're missing any of these things. And Daryl, I'm not looking at you when I say this. So if you're missing any baby teeth, silver teeth, gold teeth, or false teeth, you can go to nccash.com. And the reason I say that in jest is that you bankers on the call know that anytime that somebody doesn't pay the bill on their lockbox at the bank, that lockbox gets drilled out and the contents get sent to the treasurer's office. Last year, we found some World War II medals that had belonged to a family they've been looking for a decade. So go to nccash.com. I do want to tell you one thing. When you go there, if it's under $50, they'll tell you exactly what the amount is and where it came from. If it's over $50, they'll just tell you that where it came from, but they won't give you the amount. And the reason is that that's public record, and the property finders will actually get your name in that entry, send you a form to sign where they get 20% of whatever they find at nccash.com. So that's why we never tell people what the amount is over 50, because that discourages that kind of behavior. But I'm sorry I won't be with you July 4th this year. Somebody's going to have some really sore biceps after ringing that bell for three minutes, but damn it, it's well worth it. And I appreciate the opportunity to present to you. Thank you for that introduction.
Dale,
congratulations.
Arlene has got a question for you.
Okay.
Arlene, why don't you go ahead and ask him?
Could you just take a minute to tell us about your COVID experience?
Thank you, Arlene. It was very intense. I am one of these people you've been hearing about that are asymptomatic. And I'll say this biblically because I learned through this experience, especially when I was in intensive care for almost 6 days at the Baptist Hospital in Winston-Salem. You learn very quickly that there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual. And so I'll say this in terms of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I have never had a loss of taste, a loss of smell. I've never had a fever. I've never had a headache. I've never had a shortness of breath, and I've never had GI issues. That's true yesterday, it's true today, and it's true tomorrow. I was one of these asymptomatic people. I was literally talking to a doctor 100 miles away who, on the telephone, we were talking about an issue, since we're the largest purchaser of healthcare in North Carolina at the state health plan. We were talking about an issue, and this doctor was so insightful. He said, "You don't sound so good." I said, "I feel great. I've worked 13 hours a day. Maybe my voice is a little bit tired." And he said, "No, you really don't sound so good." He said, "We may should get you tested for COVID." And I was going to go give blood 2 days later. I have A negative, which I now understand, Arlene, back to your question, men my age who have A negative blood, there may be some more what they call premorbidity issues with COVID-19. And so I met him, he met me about 40 miles. We both drove 50 miles each way. He tested me, and then that was Monday, and then Wednesday my results came back positive. I had an appointment with my doctor the following Friday morning at 8 a.m. My doctor took a picture of my lungs, and they were as white as a t-shirt, and couldn't even hardly see my heart or my diaphragm, which are two things that are supposedly you can see from an x-ray. I've been racing motorcycles for 45 years. I just retired last October from competitive dirt bike motocross racing. And so my doctor asked me, since you don't have any of these symptoms, do you have an oxygen meter? And I informed them that anytime you race for 2.5 hours with 600 people who their average age is 22 years old, and you think you're going to drive 6 hours back home, you better have something in your truck to determine if you're capable of driving or not. So I'd always kept a little oxygen finger meter. And he said, if your oxygen levels start to fall, you need to report to the emergency room immediately. Now, I don't know how stubborn the other men are on this call, but you know, men don't like to self-report to hospitals if they can help it. I know that doesn't apply to anybody at the Southport Rotary Club. But my oxygen level at about 10 o'clock on Sunday morning fell to 85, 84, 86. And I went directly to the emergency room. And I'm starting to have some real flashbacks about all this because my wife, who by the way is the cutest 250-year-old woman you've ever met in your life. And the reason is that she's a tour guide at Old Salem. So when she goes, we got a dog that loves Old Salem, that sounds like. So when she goes to work, she's wearing a period uniform of 250 years ago. And she drove me to the emergency room at Baptist Hospital with this little bag, like she does. And I said goodbye. And that's how it goes. And I couldn't take anything in the emergency room. I was in the emergency room 26 minutes and they took me to ICU. That's how quickly this was progressing. And I just can't imagine, because I had people attending to me. She had no contact with me. And I'm just starting to realize the impact this is having on folks like her who just drive people off and set them off. So you want me to stop or you want me to give you another 2 minutes?
Got it.
Okay. Arlene, I'll just give you another 2 minutes.
Thank you.
That was Sunday morning, and as soon as I got there, they gave me this cocktail you've been hearing about, hydrochloroquine and Z-Pak. So Sunday, my body would not take the oxygen. So my oxygen levels kept falling as they were increasing my units to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as they were increasing my units of oxygen, my oxygen level was not going up. So my body would not absorb the oxygen. And so this went on all day. And Monday they came in, they turned my bed around. I'm an analytical person. I know that's a shock to most people on this call, but I was starting to analyze all the screens and everything, trying to figure out what the world's going on with me. And they could see from the nursing station that every time I started analyzing something, something would get out of whack. So they turned my bed around. So now I'm looking out not out the window, but out the door. And these COVID rooms they got ante-rooms. So there's a room that it's like an atrium. They come in, they put on their gear, and they come into your room. It's very self-contained. And so about 2 o'clock in the morning, I rest very well because I roll for about 19 hours a day and have more energy at the end than I do in the beginning. About this medicine put me in a sleep that I've never experienced. It's not nightmarish. It's not dreaming about your past. It's just a really deep sleep. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I turned my head back over and saw that I was now at 8.5 units of oxygen and my ox level was still at 86. And I saw people scurrying around outside the room. And I knew that I was going to do everything within my power and within God's power not to be put on a ventilator. I didn't know why I didn't want to be put on a ventilator. I just had seen enough reports about men my age not surviving ventilators. And so at that moment, at 2 a.m. on Tuesday morning, I had that Shawshank Redemption moment between Timothy Robbins and Morgan Freeman, where one looks at the other and says, it's time to get on with living or get on with dying. And at that point, I went into this monastic breathing, similar to what I use when I race motorcycles, where I'm breathing in as if I'm breathing in a bouquet of roses and exhaling as if I want to blow out 62 birthday candles on my next birthday cake. And from that Monday afternoon to Wednesday, I lost 14 pounds just just for the energy I was expending on something we all are taking for granted right this moment, which is breathing. And I was discharged Friday after going in on Sunday morning, and went home. And I appreciate you asking the question, but I'm very fortunate to be standing here.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate your taking the time out of your busy day to come and speak with us. And we extend to you a very warm, heartfelt invitation to come visit any of us and all of us next time you're in Southport, or make a special trip. I had a phone call while you were on the line from Marty Cook, who is one of our commissioners here in the county. And I've had Jason Disbrow, Marty Cook, Howie Franklin on the phone this morning. They all wanted to hear you. So what I'm doing is I am recording the presentation, and I hope that I have your permission to share it. Okay. That'll be shared with the rest of it. If there's no other questions, anybody have any more questions for Dale?
He did a great job.
Very good. Excellent.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and look forward to seeing you, and happy 4th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we're all going to say the unmute yourselves, and let's end with the 4-way test. And of the things that we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Hey, Daryl, be sure to go to nctreasurer.com if anybody wants more information, and the website for the sheets is nccash.com, but nctreasurer.com to hear about what we're saying about local governments, the pension plan, and the health plan. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. And I will get my front porch advisors together before then, so that we can be in advance of the directors meeting. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Leave.
Anybody left, it's actually, I think, .gov, not .com.
Okay.
Yeah. .gov.
Gibby.
You hear
I go
that?
there all the time.
All right. This recording will be posted in about an hour. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.